Welcome to Between the Poles, the podcast where we dive deep into the heart of the pole community. I'm your host, Caroline. Here, it's not just about the tricks and the spins. It's about the stories, the people, and the connections that make this community so special. Every episode, we sit down with pole artists, studio owners, and inspiring voices to explore their journeys, challenges, and passions. So grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's get real. This is Between the Poles. If you enjoy this podcast episode, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and YouTube, where we share behind-the-scenes contents, bonus clips, and more from each episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to an episode of Between the Poles. Today, I sit down with Leanne Cummins, to kind of discuss, I feel, a different angle than what I've done on the podcast so far, and you'll see why. I want to start, Leanne, right off the bat, just by reading some of the achievements you have under your belt, so our viewers and our listeners can have a sense a little bit of who you are. So you are champion in All Ireland champion, came first place in Pole Theatre Ireland Pro Drama, first place in UK PPC, and first place in Pole Princess. You are and have been a judge for PSO, and you are also a teacher. So welcome on the pole, Leanne. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm really good today. It's a nice sunny day here in Vancouver, and I'm excited to be on the pod.
All right, I want to get right into it because I have so many questions for you, and you'll see why. But I start off this podcast the same for everybody. Can you just kind of walk us through when did you start pole and kind of your journey to where you are now?
Yeah, I love that question. It's always interesting to see people's like origin story, and I think we all come to pole in lots of different ways and for different reasons. So I started pole almost 15 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And when I first started, it was really just for fun. I saw it featured on like morning TV. It was like celebrities are doing pole dancing to stay fit. And I was like, that looks really cool and I want to do it. And I don't really know why I want to do it. I just want to do something fun. So I found some pole dancing classes in Dublin. They happened in like the basement of a hotel. We had no pole studios at the time. Uh, it was a long time ago. And I had a friend of mine and she wanted to do them with me. They were on every Tuesday. And then she bailed. She was like, I can't do it. And she was like, oh, I'm sorry. Maybe we can try next time. And I said to myself, I was like, no, I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to do it on my own. And that was like quite a big deal, to do that on my own at that time in my life. In Ireland, the drop-off rate for people in fitness after the age of 12, most girls stop doing any form of fitness, and it's not very encouraged in schools in the same way as it would be for boys. And sport for women isn't as prevalent. The drop-off rate is huge after the age of 12. So I really wanted to get back into um into some form of exercise really. I did it on my own and kind of never looked back from there.
All right. Usually people give me like so much detail and I love it. And then I ask all the questions at the end. I'm going to like walk through the questions with you. But my first question is, were you always kind of interested in a more alternate way of fitness? Because you said like, oh, I saw it on TV and right away I was like, I kind of want to try that. Were you always kind of interested in the more like underground kind of aspect of sports and stuff like that? Were you in any other sports before pole?
Yeah, so I was a competitive swimmer when I was younger, and I loved that. But then when I became a teenager, I kind of lost interest in it. Again, the drop-off rate for teenage girls in Ireland, it's pretty extreme. And then I had done some karate as well, which I really enjoyed. I like things that have like um very skill based and solo activities. So karate and swimming and horse riding I did as well. So those were my kind of my activities, but I was always really fascinated by pole dancing, by strip clubs, by everything in the adult entertainment industry. So that aspect of it was really something that drew me specifically to pole dancing. And then when I went to the classes, they were just so fun. It was just so much fun, and that's what kept me with pole.
Right, because there's, like, 15 years of story that we're gonna get into.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit? Because I do ask the guests on the podcast. One, I love that you're like, "I started 15 years ago, because it's so easy for us to look on social media and people are doing, like, amazing things. Like, you bend in ways that I find, like, mesmerizing. So my soul is happy to know that you've been doing this for a while,
Yeah.
and I'm not expected to be able to do this after, like, a year, 2 years, right? But, how did that first class go for you? And were you in the camp of people that could already kind of lift body weight, but needed more of the technique? Or were you in the camp of like, no, it took me a while to be able to lift body weight and I had to kind of work on that first?
Yeah, I was definitely I was in the second camp. I remember being so afraid of going upside down and so disorientated. I really I did not like achieve the things that we see as like even beginner pole now. I didn't achieve those for a really long time. And I since learned because I was taken on as a substitute instructor for that particular dance company in later years. And I since learned that they emphasize just fun, that they didn't want their students to be doing anything crazy. They didn't want their students to be taking it as like an extreme sport in the way that we kind of can often see now. It was an emphasis on fun. So it was like really fun music. It was more like kind of like a step aerobics class with pole dancing, if you can imagine that. And it was very like it was just a very girly experience at the time. It was only when I had I took a little break, and then I went back to it, and there was a different instructor, and she was the one who was like, "These are the tricks, and this is how we're going to get you to do the tricks." And she saw something in me. I don't know how, because you said about lifting body weight. So I was very, very underweight at the time. So I was coming to pole dancing with a lot of like insecurity in my body. I wasn't eating at all really, and I was looking for a way to move and to do something where I could like appreciate my body for what it was doing and not how it looked. I'm pole dancing, and and the first instructor I had was great. She was so much fun. I don't know where she's gone now. It was so long ago. That second instructor was really the person who really pushed me, and she took care of me, and she went above and beyond for me. And she was the one who, when a pole studio actually opened up nearby, she was like, we're going here. And yeah, that's how it started.
I love that. And I love that you're saying like you started pole like underweight
Mhm.
because I was quite on the opposite scale of that. Like I came to pole as a way to try to lose weight while I was pregnant and I was really like unhealthy. And we've had guests on of different body size and right. And I love that. But I think you're the first one who's like, no, listen, pole really helped change my mindset. I love how you said it, like from how do I look to what can I do? That is amazing. And I hope more students feel like that because it is such a harsh world. I'm gonna say for women, but for different types of people out there, there's so much pressure, and I wish more of us came to sport and came to like fun classes, being like, I'm just grateful that my body can move in this way and that I'm able to do this.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
absolutely love that. Now I want more details though. Okay, so you kind of spend the early years, you're having fun, you're learning the tricks. when did you ramp it up? Because at some point in this 15 year, you're going to start winning a lot of things. Like you're going to get good at this. And I'm like, how did we get from like, I'm a beginner to like, you know what? I might want to compete.
Yeah, so I kind of know the turning point, and it was when I started to do more than one class a week. So that particular dance group, and they still run classes, but they do like ballroom, they do all different types of dance, and then they do pole, and they don't do them in studios. So we they just put up the poles in a space and take them down. And that's how like a lot of people did get started in Dublin, especially at that time, but we had no mirrors. We wore like trainers, we wore runners in during class. We There was only one class a week, and there was only two levels. It was like level one and
Wow.
level two, and that was it. And that's still the way that it is. So a really simplified version of pole, and then I there really was nothing else at the time, but then suddenly a couple of studios appeared in Dublin, and I decided I would go and try some of those classes. So going from 1 hour a week to doing, I started to do acrobalance, and I started to do flexibility classes, both with Lizette Kroll, who had not opened up her studio yet. And then I started to do pole classes with Arlene Caffrey as well. And taking it from 1 hour a week to multiple hours, I was like, oh, here we go. I was very sore, but I was noticing much more progression. And then when because we didn't have like good cameras on our phones either. So I had never seen myself dancing. So I didn't know what I looked like. So it wasn't until I got into an actual studio with mirrors that I was like, oh, okay. And then when the studios opened up, they started pushing their students to compete. And there was already one big competition in Dublin. And then in 2013, I signed up for that competition, Pole Princess, and then I won that. And that was my first time ever on stage. I have no dance background at all. So it was my first time performing, first time competing. And when I won that in Ireland at the time, if you won a competition, you people were like, okay, now you can teach. That was the logic at the time.
Yeah.
And then I started teaching, and that's it. That's when it started to all come together for me, and I was like, oh, this is what I want to do.
Okay, I have more questions for you.
Hmm.
And then I'm gonna say this in like the least creepy way possible. I follow you on Instagram for a while because we'll get kind of to it because at some point you'll move to Canada to teach and all that, right?
Hmm.
But I did start pole in Vancouver and then I just kind of followed a lot of the instructor at the studio I went to, which is the studio you teach at right now.
Okay, yeah.
So I've been pulling for 4 years. So I want to say I've been following you for probably like 4 years.
Okay.
You're not only known for this, but I know you most on my feed for like your really flexible tricks and really nice smooth flows. And you said that like when you changed studio, you went for like acro balance and flexibility. Why those class? Because I know a lot of student kind of you can do both, right? You can really do whatever you want and pull. It's really freeing. But I feel like a lot of people either like really concentrate on like muscle up tricks and like getting like static dynamics and stuff like that, or they're really more into heels based
Hmm.
classes. Why did you go for acro balance and flex?
So, at the time, there were no heels happening in Dublin. So I still didn't know about pleasers. I didn't know about anything to do with like dancing in heels. I didn't know that that was an option for me. And I signed up for the flexibility class because I was like, oh, I'm pretty flexible, so I want to do a class specific to that to see how I guess to just to stretch and see how to stretch properly. Um and it was in that class that the instructor was like, you should also come to acrobalance. And then you should also come to my pole classes when I start them. So it was like good recruitment. And I was just open to anything at that time. I was even doing aerial hoop as well, which I did for years in Dublin, and I did for a couple of years here, but there's only so much you can do. Yeah.
I was gonna ask though, can you, I'm not super well educated, and maybe some viewers and listeners have the same question. Can you tell us what exactly is acrobalance?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people call it acro yoga, but we just didn't come to it from a yoga perspective. So it's partner acrobatics, so two or more people creating shapes and lifting each other and moving each other, usually with your hands and feet. And because Terry and Lizette were so big in the Dublin scene, and they were known for doing partner acrobalance and as part of their pole performances and as part of all of their shows, we it got pretty popular in Dublin at that time, and I loved it. And it's a great way of meeting people because you're very like literally hands on with people, like you're interacting a lot. It's super creative as well, and I we would often try to like figure out shapes together. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Anytime I do it still now, sometimes I'll do partner performances and I'll throw some simple acrobalance stuff in there, and it's really rewarding. I like to cross train pole as much as possible, so I guess I started that from a really early part in my career, and you asked why, and I think the driving force is the instructors. Like they're like, oh, I see potential in you for this, and you should do this thing, and you should do this thing. And that's often, we didn't have any poll on social media at the time, so I didn't know the potential. I was still watching, Felix Kane videos on YouTube. It was very rudimentary. So and we were, watching DVDs of Alethea Austin. It was old school. So yeah, it was really up to the instructors and whatever classes they were offering. And it got to a point where I was like, I'll do literally any class. I'll get the unlimited membership. I'll do any class. I just want to do all of it.
Yeah. And you said you were quite flexible and you wanted to see like why were you already flexible? Because I want to know, because I want to get to your point, which I don't think I'll ever go. Because like what you post online, I'm like, oh my God, like how do you get there? How were you already flexible? I will also like put this. You said you've been doing it for 15 years.
Yeah.
So there's hard work, consistency behind it. I don't want people on here listening being like, oh, I'm going to do that and get there. You have to put in the years. But why were you just naturally flexible? And then because you're good at it, you like it, because you like it, you keep on going. And then you know what? It's kind of a circle of like, it just keeps going.
Yeah, that's definitely what it was. For me, the first time that I tried a chest stand, I did put my feet on my head. So
What?
yeah, I didn't know what a chest stand was. I wouldn't have been able to describe it to you if you had said what's a chest stand. And then the first time that we did them in class, and I actually still have a photo of me doing it, I put my feet on my head. But I am naturally flexible. I do have hypermobility as well, and I have a lot of issues because of that, which I've been managing a lot better in recent years. And my splits weren't flat though. Like my straddles weren't flat, my middle splits weren't flat, and my front splits, I remember working really hard on those. So the flexibility classes, I really enjoyed them. And I really liked the lines that I could make. I actually remember in my very first class, the instructor was like, "Oh, you must be a dancer. Like your lines are so beautiful." And I didn't even know what she meant by lines. I was just like, good. That sounds good. I didn't really know. So I did obviously have like a natural ability there, but then I worked on it so hard. Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna try to do this properly. And I would do private lessons with anyone that any contortionists or any rhythmic gymnastics people that I could get my hands on. I was doing private lessons with. I took up adult gymnastics classes. I started to do handstands classes as well. And I was still doing the flexibility classes once a week, but then I was stretching at home using like whatever YouTube videos I could find to stretch too. And I still do that. I still love it so much. So it is hard work, I think. But I can't, I, 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 I just can't speak from a place where I don't have any natural ability. It was clearly already there to a certain extent.
I love that. I'm going to give you whiplash because we have to keep moving forward. This podcast is only an hour.
Okay.
So we were at the point where you've done your first competition, that went well, and then you kind of got recruited to start teaching.
Mm.
There is a lot of competition and performance yet to happen.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit how that went about? How did you choose what other competitions you were going to do? Performance, when did you start that? Because that's a different beast in its own, right? Because you're not up there to like make points or up there for like showmanship.
Yeah.
How did you know, like, you know what, I like competing, but I also like performing? Can you touch up a little bit on that?
So it was interesting at the time in Dublin, the only way that you could get on stage was by competing. So there were so few performance opportunities. Pole hadn't gone into the burlesque scene that much yet. Arlene was doing it, but she was like the only pole dancer in the burlesque shows. There were just so few opportunities. So I was like, okay, well, I want to be on stage again. And the next logical thing for me was do another competition. So that was, pole theater a couple of times. And then any other kind of shows that would come up, usually run by pole dancers, all the pole dancing shows. And then I started doing those. And I then I changed studios. So then when I changed studios, I actually changed my style of dance again. And this is where I say it's like a lot to do with the instructor, because I changed to a much more heels focused studio, and a much more like classique type of dance. And I changed my focus to that. And then I started in heels. And that was when I then did the All Irelands, and winning the All Irelands was like that was kind of that's like the peak for me, I guess, with competing. I was like, yeah, I don't really need to do any more after this. So that was
Can
in
you
it.
touch up a little bit on that? What is
Yeah.
All Ireland for people listening? How
Yeah.
did you get ready for it? And tell us a little bit about your piece that you won with.
Sure. Yeah. So the All Irelands was a really special experience for me. It happens in Belfast. It still happens every year. Elle still runs it every year, and it's a really great competition. It is the only competition in Ireland running at the moment that is on a truss. So all the other competitions are on X stages. So this had two poles, and this is on a big stage in Belfast. And Arlene had won the All Irelands, and she had worn heels, and it was quite rare for people to have worn heels, and definitely rare to have won wearing heels as well. But for the studio that she ran, heels were like the main focus, and that was our passion. So I wanted to compete in heels. So it was my first time competing in heels. Um, I always do very character driven pieces, and I think we'll talk about that in the showmanship and creation in a second. But the All Irelands I wanted to do, it was the first time I danced to a song that I actually loved. I said, I don't care that no one's gonna know this song, I'm just gonna dance to it. And I wore a super teeny tiny bikini for the first time on stage, and I wore like a fishnet mask, and yeah, it was a whole thing. It was a look. It was very dark, and I just got up there and I danced like a very, like, I guess you would just call it like an intense kind of performance. But I was really I was really in it, and I was really proud of myself because there were it's a tough comp, and there were like 10 other people in my category, and people I really admire as dancers. So yeah, I won that, and I was really happy to kind of push for heels, and push for that style of dance, and for our studio. It was a big deal.
Now I want to talk about it because you said it was very character driven. Can we
Yeah.
touch up on it a little bit? How do you come about putting your pieces together? Is there a big difference for you between something you know you're going to compete with and something you know you're going to perform? How do you make that difference?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you get good at, because you're amazing, by the way, like from what I see on social media, because you do post some of the performance you've done.
Mm-hmm.
When did you start knowing the difference between like I'm dancing for myself and then this is what like would please an audience or be like yeah, like pleasing to look at? Like how did you make that switch mentally? Because it's a big difference for me dancing in the studio for myself to me teaching for like a class. I can't even imagine taking that further and being like, ah,
Mm-hmm.
that's actually for like being on stage and performing.
So I always say that I draw so much on my academic background. So I have a degree in English literature, and I have a master's in English literature as well. And I studied a lot of film and as well as literature during those degrees. And I draw hugely on popular culture. Because there were so few videos available to me at the time when I started competing. I started right off the bat with wanting to just put something genuine out there. And even my first piece for Pole Princess was a very character driven piece. And I feel like I go into this kind of like space on stage where I can tap into something really authentic, and people can see that. So people see that I'm having a good time, or that I'm expressing myself in an authentic way, um, and then they enjoy that. So I don't know if I've made that like a huge difference between when I compete and when I um perform my own creations. I do definitely dance in a different way when I get booked for um gigs that might be like, okay, you're doing 15-minute long sets and there's DJs. So then I don't choreograph those, and I just perform in line with the tone of the event. So I'm very, very good at adapting, and the reason why I've gotten good at that is because I freestyled every Saturday for years in a nightclub in Dublin, at a night called Circus. And it was without a pole. And I was doing multiple sets on stage, freestyle dancing. It was like flexibility. I was a specialist skills performer. So I got really, really good at adapting to audiences, to not knowing what music was going to be playing, and to just looking like I'm having a good time and hoping that that kind of feedback loop happens with the audience. And then for my own pieces, they're very character driven and very I focus a lot on creativity and um legacy work with the characters that I'm doing or trying to honor in my pieces.
I have kind of two questions from that. One, do you feel like you put on a persona when you perform of like the character you're embodying or the character or the like the piece? Or is it you giving homage to something? Do you know what I mean? And then my
Mm-hmm.
second question would be, when was your first performance? Because we touched up on your first competition, and then can you touch up a little bit on your first performance?
Yeah, my first performance was actually quite soon after that competition. I did a charity show in Kildare, so near Dublin in Ireland, and it was with all other pole dancers, and I was a cat. And I was like, okay, well, this is a charity show. I don't need to go like all out with my piece, like I don't need to put in as much effort as I had put in for the competition, but I basically did the same routine, but then I altered it for the music. And I remember that I had a really good time at that. Um, but I almost always do like very character driven pieces, and like or trying to at least capture a mood, if not a specific character. And I think it's me. um it is me paying homage. Like I try not to just replicate. I try to be like, this is this if there was Pole involved. Or it would be like, this is this character, like my American Psycho piece, for example. Um, I wanted to add to that. I wanted to show a side that we don't get often to see, or that kind of like highlight the misunderstanding of that film and that book in general. So that's what I specifically wanted to do. And I that's coming from a very personal place too. And a lot of my performances come from very personal places. Like I use a lot of my song choices come from very personal places. I think since that the All Irelands that I won, when I was like, I'm just gonna do it to my favorite song. Um, then since then I try to use songs that I really love. And of course I do try to do things that it aren't going to alienate an audience. They're not going to push an audience away either. So I will do, like, it's all still to be accessible as well.
And then I kind of want to keep moving on in your journey just because there's so much to touch up on.
Hmm.
Would you say that you are retired right now from competing? Because you have been a judge now for a while too.
Yeah.
How, where are you at with that?
Yeah, so I find myself choreographing a lot of pieces for people, or being somehow a participant in some people creating pieces, giving advice. I have a lot of students who compete. And actually um I started that process, coaching people for competitions, like the year after I won my first competition.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been like, that's a process that's so wonderful for me, and I'm more than happy to do that and not compete. Because it's then I get to see so many pieces come alive on stage. And I still get all the nerves and the excitement, but I get to see other people go up on stage and perform in that way. I'll say that I am retired from competing. My last competition was Pole Princess, and I did aerial hoop, and I came second. So that was a lot of fun. That was my only aerial hoop competition. Um, and yeah, that was a long time ago now. The All Ireland's does have an over 40s category, and I've always said that when I'm over 40, I'll do that, and that will be like my comeback. So I don't know. We'll see how I feel then.
Can you tell us how did you start? Oh my God, which question do I want? I was going to ask you, how did you start judging? But I
Yeah.
also want to ask you, how did you start performing as much as you did? Because you said, like, oh, I did the
Yes.
charity, but you do a lot of performing as well. Like, how did that come about? Because you also monetized your performance because you have to live off of something, right? Which I feel so very few pole artists do. Would you mind touching up on that? Like,
Yeah.
how were you able to monetize it? Do you have any tips and tricks for anybody that is thinking about it? Like, how did that come about for you?
I moved to Canada. That's how I did it. I moved to Canada. I was performing and teaching full time back in Ireland, but I was maxed out. Like I was teaching at two different studios. I was teaching for 4 hours a night. I was dancing at a club. I was also dancing at the weekends, still at circus. I was doing everything that I could basically in the industry. I was picking up gigs. They were paid gigs. I did stop I mean, bar a few donation-based or charity events that I will still do, or some volunteer events, everything is paid now. And I did get to that point pretty quickly. Because Arlene, when I moved to her studio, she was like, we get paid. We get paid for our performances. And she was like, how much are you getting paid? That's not enough. You want to ask him for more. All that, like, she knew what was up and she was really helpful with me. Um and It was definitely still a struggle, like a kind of a starving artist vibe back then. And I was doing a lot. I was also doing like studio coordinator work. I was doing everything that I could to make it my full-time job after the All Irelands. Um, and it was working. It was good. But then when I moved to Canada, that was when I was like, oh, this can be better. So I was dancing straight away for Georgia, for Electric Obsidian. I'm doing go-go gigs and doing more kind of specialty shows for her. And then I was teaching much more at Tantra as well, and getting more performances. And the opportunities, just they are better here. They have gotten better at home, and it's great to see people that I know in the industry still performing a lot at home too, and succeeding in making dance and pole their full-time jobs. But it is, and I do still perform when I go home too, and I teach workshops as well. And that's been great. But it was moving to Canada. That's how I did it. And it's like you're in a new country and you don't know anybody, and you really had to put yourself out there. And it just gave me that push that I needed. And then when I started seeing that the opportunities were there, I was like, oh, okay, like that, I'm gonna do this.
Do you feel that the environment in Canada was more we pay and we get paid to do this kind of work? Because I know what you mean. I feel a lot of people will perform for free or like, oh no, I'll teach this workshop because I want to teach it. I'll teach it for free and stuff. But then I'm like, well, it kind of makes it really hard for people that like this is their full-time job, like they get paid for this. Do you feel there was kind of stricter boundaries where like it had already been like laid out, like we pay performers, we pay a certain amount for you to teach? Like, do you feel like that's the different mindset that was already in Canada?
Yes and no. I do agree with what you're saying about working for free, perpetuating a culture of working for free and not getting paid. I don't know if that actually really does exist in Ireland, as opposed to just it is more homegrown. The shows are smaller produced back home. The stages are smaller. There's pros and cons to that. They're much more intimate. And there I am seeing a lot bigger opportunities happening now as well on a larger scale, but it is also a much smaller country, and this and a much smaller pool of opportunities. So the homegrown aspect is actually something that I do miss, and I do love going home and performing at like cabaret shows where I performed at one recently, and like my parents came, and then also those are people that I'd gone to like high school with were there, secondary school as we call it in Ireland, and then also a girl that I used to babysit was there. So that was so much fun, and they were all just in this tiny little pub upstairs in like a town in a suburb of Dublin. Like that's amazing, and I love that. But I did find like a more kind of, yeah, there's more money here, there's more opportunity, and a more of a framework laid out. And in that way, it's like, yeah, it is different. It feels less casual here, and there is a framework in place. And I could get into all the various reasons why, but it is just cultural differences.
Fair enough.
Hmm.
I see the time just like flying us by, and I want us to do the last segment too. I want to ask you kind of a last question, because you do judge, and I've
Yes.
said it a couple of times. Can you tell us what was the first competition you judged? How
Yeah.
did that get about? And do you enjoy it? I feel like you do because you've been doing it now for a little bit. So can you touch up a little bit on why you judge, what you like or dislike about judging, and how that came about?
Yeah, so for me, I started judging Pole Princess, the competition that I won in 2013. And I judged that a couple years later because they have the same judges every year, usually, or at the time they did. And one of those judges, Arlene, was out of town. So she was like, "You're doing it instead." And that's a lot of fun. A completely different landscape to any of the competitions over here. They happen at night. Everyone drinks a lot. They are very, very, very long competitions. They run for hours and hours and hours. They are on X stages. It's on a tiny stage. It's a huge event. Everybody has such a great time, and yeah, that was wonderful to, especially to go back and judge alongside like some really heavy hitters in the industry, but also a competition that I had previously been in. That was really wonderful. Um, and then a big break, right? Like I didn't judge for a long time until I moved over here, and I thought to myself, like, okay, well, I don't really want to compete, like for the reasons that I've said, but I do want to have. I want to be a kind of a representative and a voice for um, my particular perspective in the industry. So I wanted to judge. I started judging for PSO, and also for Dance Filthy. I judged here as well, and since then I've actually judged CPAC as well. Recently too. So, and I'm going to be judging the script down online applicants as well. So I have been a stripper for a long time in Ireland and here. So I have a kind of a dual perspective on the industry, and I have been in pole for a longer time as well, and I wanted to kind of combine those two things, and then also like I the perspective of having like seen so many students going into the competitions and watch so many competitions and being participants in them as well, and just wanted to bring all of that together to see if I can, yeah, provide some useful feedback to people who are getting on stage.
I love that. I really, really do. All right. I'm going to move us up to the last segment. We call it the last grip. These are like way casualer questions, super easy to answer. You can give us as much or as little details as you would want.
Okay,
Leanne, are you ready for the last grip?
I am ready.
All right. Coffee or tea? Favorite song to dance to right now?
Um, Anything that's like my mom and dad's favorite songs.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
Can you tell us your most loved pole outfit or pole accessory?
I think of all time, it's the jellyfish umbrella that Agata from Sway made for me. I'm pretty iconic. Unfortunately, it got destroyed in the trunk of my car traveling from show to show and using it so much on stage. So RIP jellyfish umbrella. But besides that, I always wear garters on stage. So yeah, cute little garters.
Here we go. I like that. Heels or barefoot?
I do both. Honestly, I love both. I'll always love both.
I was gonna say, because I know you perform a lot in your heels and I see you do all that, but you post a lot of just like you at your house flowing, and a lot of those are just bare feet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people really love those. So it's a it's it almost feels more intimate to me sometimes. Yeah.
I would kind of agree from the perspective of me just kind of casually following you on Instagram. And you know, when you click through stories, like Instagram just pops the next one. I always kind of stop and watch yours because it feels so like, yeah, intimate. It's nice. Usually, like, you have like sunlight coming through, and it just feels like you're improving and putting things together. And I always find it amazing because I'm like, oh, that's maybe not a path that I would have thought of that feels quite natural for you, or at least looks quite natural.
Mhm.
So I really enjoy that too.
Oh, thank you.
And I always tell this to my guests, like, I try not to be creepy. I'm not saying this and
No,
like
no,
I
I know.
stalk you, But like I just love watching people dance. I love watching people pole, right? Like, anyways,
Yeah,
love
that's
your
why we're
choice.
here.
Please keep doing so.
Yeah.
Can you give us one word to describe your relationship with pole?
Oh, I'm obsessed.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Spin or static?
Spin.
Tricks or choreo?
Mm. Choreo at the moment.
Morning practice or evening practice?
Ooh. Um, Evening.
Okay. Love or hate of conditioning?
Love.
Really? Not a lot of people say love.
Love. Yes.
I love
I make my conditioning really fun. That's one thing I try to do in my classes.
fair enough. Okay, I this is my favorite question from the last group. Can you tell us two or three people that you really enjoy like watching or that we should be like following or know about?
That's a really good question. I'm, oh, like, I mean, pay respect to the OGs. Absolutely, Felix Kane. Just the sweetest human as well. Olga Koda, I think is does things with pole that you just would not expect. So I definitely think Olga Koda, again, another really wonderful and sweet human too. Um, and then probably uh let me think. Um I have an internet friend called Amy K9, and she dances in such a sad and sexy way, and I think that that's like one of my go-to styles, and she just moves so beautifully. And also the fact that we're both Irish, and maybe someday we'll meet, but the fact that we are internet connected through pole, I think really is like something that's so wonderful about pole dancing. So I'm going to say Amy K9.
I love that. Can you tell us your nemesis move or nemesis family of move?
Oh, okay. So my shoulders are really like rolled forwards from doing so much pole. And so I don't like anything where I'm like back. So like a bird of paradise or anything where my arm is bent like this. And then yeah, that's it. So anytime I see anyone and they have like their arm like this or like this, I'm like, no, no, I'm not gonna do those. I like a straight arm.
And then to finish on like a more positive one, the last question is, what is your favorite move or family of moves?
Anything where I can put my foot on my head. That's what I used to say, and I think that is a legitimate family of moves, or at least it's an addition to certain moves. If I can put my foot on my head, I will. I've moved that now to like, can I put my heel in my mouth on stage? That's a pretty big crowd pleaser. So I think crowd pleasing moves where I can look at my audience, and moves where that I can time with a drop. Those would be my favorite on stage, especially when I'm freestyling. I really love pulling those out of the bag, and they're not usually the hardest moves either. That's the big secret.
It's crazy. That's why, like, when you like, if I can put my ankle in my please follow Leanne on Instagram. I swear, that's why I follow you. I'm like, what? How are you? And then sometimes I'm also to myself like, where is the grip point? Like, what? And then I
Yeah.
have to like double back and be like, because I'm like, what? And then in my mind, I'm trying to realize how you can even like get there. And I'm like, I don't get this.
Yeah, it's like a little puzzle we all have to try to figure out, right? When we see something online.
Yeah. All right. That is it for us today. Thank you so much for being on this episode of Between the Poles. Once again, for my viewers and my listeners, I will put Leanne's Instagram so you can give her a follow. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yay, thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Between the Poles. If you love this episode, be sure to hit follow and leave us a review. It helps more pole lovers find the show. And for exclusive bonus content, behind the scene footage, and extra pole goodness, follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, stay strong, stay connected, and keep spinning your story. This was Between the Poles.